Hi, how are you? I thought that I'd talk to you about violent relationships and how they start. They don't start as a violent one, they start like a normal relationship. So you meet somebody new, and they immediately get fond of you and they say that they love you and they take you out to dinner and they give you flowers and they give you gifts, and everything is like magical for the first period of time. They are very interested in hearing about your life, about your friends, about your work, about your family. They want to hear absolutely everything. And they want to see you all the time. That was one thing that I felt was odd, that he wanted to see me every day, without exceptions, even though I had something already planned. But I didn't realize it then, not at all, that there was something wrong. I thought that everything that he did was normal. And maybe it was. But then it starts to turn around. So when you want to go out with your friends, they start mobbing. They say that, do you have to go? And why don't you stay home with me? And they were planning that, or they say that they were planning that, get your favorite food and maybe watch your favorite movie and do all the stuff that you always wanted to do, but they were secondary. And it's always a problem if you want to go out with your friends. And then you start to feel bad, because they are very good at this. So you may go once or twice, and when you come back or see them next time, if you don't live together, they are moping. And I was just home alone. And of course there comes the point when they say that, why do you go with your friends? Let's go with my friends. They are better friends. They are better people. They are more reliable. And they know their own friends, so they will feel more comfortable with them. Because they don't ever go to meet your friends. They see them once or twice, and after that they figure out something bad to say, each one of them. So that's like pompous, and that doesn't like me, and that's too talkative or something like that. But somehow they think and try to convince you that they are better than your friends, and their friends are better than your friends. So this goes on day after day, week after week. And then there are all the milestones, your birthdays, for example, that they think that of course you will spend them with them. Who else? And if you again want to go out and celebrate, it's not a good idea. Of course, if you move in together, then things will escalate and they will have more power and they use more power. And then if you want to go out with your friends, they remember that time, that friend that gave the champagne to everybody who had the promotion, that no, he doesn't like you to going out with them because they are bad news. They give you alcohol and they try to take advantage of you. Why else would they do that? So they see some kind of scene to get a hold of you, not just celebrating like friends do, like in normal circumstances. But it all happens, and they do all that to isolate you from your friends, to make you feel bad and guilty every time you go see your friends and don't spend all time with him. And the same applies to the place you work. Of course they ask you, where do you work and what kind of friends you have at work and who in general hangs around at your workplace. And if there is somebody from opposite sex, if you are attracted to opposite sex, are they young? Are they smart? Are they handsome? And God forbid if they are old and ugly, it's still they say that they do not like you working there because there are these persons that are likely trying to take advantage of you. You just don't understand it because you are gullible and simple and naive. But thank God they are here to protect you and to see that you do not spend time with that kind of people. So now the tables start to turn another way. So everything they do is to protect you from yourself, your gullibility and your naiveness and your good heart, that you might, for example, help somebody. God forbid, that is not just a help, that is some kind of scheme to seduce you. And of course, at that point, you may somehow, or may know, or possibly know, that this is all just like fiction. This is not true. And you start to tell them that, but it doesn't help. They just get more angrier and angrier and say that, okay, you have already planned something because you are standing up for somebody that is at your work. Of course, there is some kind of plan already going on. So they have to be more careful so that you don't fall for this person's seduction. And then may come the physical isolation. So, for example, if you want to leave the house, they may stand before the door and say that, where are you going to go? You are not going through this. And if you are considerably smaller or not ready to use violence, you cannot leave. Or the more subtle but effective approach, to have both the keys. So I have both keys to this apartment. You can leave, but you know that you cannot come back. And if you don't have an considerable amount of money or escape plan, you cannot just leave without your keys even. But they do that. And when you question about it or confront them about it, they just say that the confrontation itself is a sign that you need protection from yourself and you are too gullible to be around people. And of course then starts the physical violence at some point. So squeezing your hand, just that you should pay more attention to what I say, and that's all the reason. Or pushing, or holding you inside the house, that's a form of violence too. You cannot keep somebody locked in your house if they don't want to. And of course, then there is your relatives. They may isolate you from your friends, but they cannot isolate you from your family, not that easily. But of course they can try to make you look like a fool in their eyes. For example, this normal weekend visits, or Christmas or New Year's or something like that, and you go to your relatives for a weekend, so you spend the nights in there. And they may think that this is too much. So they sit in the guest room and say that you have to decide if you go to them or if you stay with me. If you love me more, then you stay with me in this room and not go out. And they decide when it's right time to go out, if ever. And if you leave them in the guest room and go to be with your family and relatives, then they will leave and make a big scene out of it. So they will embarrass you in front of your relatives and family. And they do it on purpose. Because whenever they see your family, they are very nice and very, like, everything goes, and they help everybody and they smile all the time, and everybody thinks that they are very, very nice persons and say that you're so lucky that you met him. And they don't know, they don't guess, they don't see behind that facade that what is really going on. They are really good at that. And because it's all a short period of time, they can pretend. And at some point, what starts as curiosity and then becomes protecting you from outside world and then protecting you from yourself can lead to paranoia. So whenever you are in a public place, they may see people that are thinking ill of you and that are trying to prey on you. And they will gather all this information, and when you get home, all hell breaks loose. So they think that you looked at somebody like inviting way, or that somebody had the plan with you and they were there because that you had the plan. But they are onto you and they notice this and they know you and they are going to protect you from yourself so you don't do anything stupid. And at this point, you may realize at last that this is too much. That there is no plan. There is no great scheme to lure you away, or that you had anything to do with any of those people, or you hardly even remember them, that you saw in this very public place where is people, lots of people from various backgrounds, and you may know somebody, but most likely you don't. But if you try to deny that, then there will be punishments. And the punishments are physical. And they all are to protect you. So I got to this point. And then something happened. Something happened in my family that made this kind of a issue so visible that I couldn't deny it being real anymore. So I needed to go because something has happened to my family. And he said that I should just shut up and sleep because he's tired and he needs to go to work the next day. And I said that, okay, I'm afraid that this person is going to die, that I have to go. And he said no. So that was something that was so obvious. That one, of course, these, like I told you, I have been counting what happened, what actually happened, and try to make a sense of it and try to keep my own head and not believe, because they are very good at explaining things, and of course they do everything to protect you because they love you so much, but they are actually suffocating you and isolating you, and that's not something that you do to a person that you're supposed to love. So this ultimate fear that I had for the member of my family didn't penetrate that. And that was the last straw that woke me up. But that was just the start. I thought about it in my head. But of course I couldn't say it out loud, not knowing what I know, not knowing that it's not a problem to lock me inside the house. So he could lock me inside the house probably for years before anybody noticed that I'm not actually answering telephone, or I cannot even believe, I cannot even think what might have happened. So I did the only thing that I could. So during my work hours, I rented an apartment, and one day when he left to work, I gathered my stuff and left keys on the table. It takes a lot of strength to leave a violent relationship, and especially if the violence is this kind of a subtle one. I believe that it would have been escalating to broken bones and bigger bruises, but I thank God that I left when I did. Of course, this subtle violence, like squeezing you too hard, and it inflicts pain, real pain, and it's frightening. and they do it to scare you. But you have to leave before it escalates, because person who can use these kind of methods day after day, there is no limit. One thing was some kind of a wake-up call for me. We were living together, but we didn't have children. And whenever that was talked about, he said that he didn't want children, because then I wouldn't be able to look after him, because I would have to look after the children. And he didn't like that. The idea that my attention would be divided to his children. But I didn't think about that at the time. It was just something that came up. But in these cases, people who do have children, and they come in the funny and in a good phase, when they are still loving and want to do everything for you, then it's a cruel wake-up to notice that you are actually in a violent relationship, and maybe your children won't be spared from the violence. And then it's even harder to leave. And the whole concept of leaving is very hard, because nobody believes you. They have seen the funny and the loving and the guy that helps everybody, and suddenly you say that they are violent, that they use violence against you. People don't believe. And they don't rush to your help. They just say that maybe you misunderstood. Give it some time. You cannot, what did you do that you make them angry? And at the point that you don't have the scars or the bruises to show them, they don't understand and they do not accept. And that makes leaving, especially leaving with children, even more impossible. But for my luck, there was no children involved, so I could leave. But even after that, after I moved out, he called me several times, telling me that he is going to follow me after my work. Where do I go? And he's going to come after me. And he, of course, made these calls early in the morning just to hear that I'm alone. But there is, of course, somebody is thinking that why did you answer? Well, when that kind of person calls, it's better to answer. It's better to know what they are up to, and just try to say that I do not want to meet you. I do not want to continue living with you, and move on. But it took years that I stopped looking behind. When I left work, I would go around and walking blocks and parks, so that I wouldn't go to that kind of situation where I'm at my front door and he's standing behind me. I was really scared for a while, until I noticed and heard that he had moved on and he had his next victim. But that I know that the next victim wasn't as lucky as I was. And I really feel sorry for her. But like I said, these kind of things don't just emerge from somewhere. You cannot say that this is going to be a violent relationship. I'm not going to start this. They start gradually, and even the most sane people fall under their spell. These people prey for lonely people, people who have bad self-esteem, people who don't have a loving family to take care of them, to ask them all these questions as the time goes by, and telling them this is not okay. For some reason, these people find the suitable victims for their lifestyle, or whatever you may call it. So the only thing that we can do is to take care of our children and take care of our friends, and tell always that tell us the truth. If something's bothering you, tell me, and we figure out together if it's something that we should be worried about. And of course, this happens to both men and women. I know that women can be violent too, and they can be very intimidating, and they can mess up your life like nobody's business. Of course, men are usually stronger than women, so there is not similar physical threat, but still it comes so out of the blue if you are not used to that, and I hope you are not, that somebody might hit you, or somebody may push you, or somebody may lock you inside the house. It's so startling that you cannot even begin to think that how should I react to this kind of situation, and you just freeze and see what happens, or think that this is not true, that I have understood something, like this is some kind of misunderstanding, or I'm in a dream. It feels unreal, and it's not easy to accept it. But if you have some kind of experience in this kind of issues, please comment down below. And how did you get out? And when did you get out? Like I said, if there is children involved, it might be impossible to leave. So you can get the police and everything involved. But even in that case, they may not want to protect your children from the same faith. They just think that it's between a couple and it doesn't concern the rest of the family. But they are wrong. Everyone who has been around a violent person knows that the violence spreads to everybody. It's not just hitting, but it's moving persons from one place to another. If you do it to your spouse, you can do it to your children at the same manner, and the violence is there. It just waits for the right moment to really explode. But, like I said, I'm not a therapist. I'm a wife, mother, and a lawyer entrepreneur. And I just tell you what I have experienced, what I have thought, and what I have seen. So, I hope you have a great day. I see you soon. Goodbye.